Hey, I'm thinking of making a YouTube channel. What do you think?
I reckon go for it, man.
Thank you.
So just this month in Australia, the 2023 film Late Night with the Devil has finally hit theatres. Originally the film was shown at certain festivals, I'm pretty sure, but I remember seeing the trailer around the start of this year and instantly being intrigued with everything about it. Spoilers ahead. So firstly, this has been said so many times now, but it is awesome for David Dastmalchian to finally be in a lead role. His work in other films like Prisoners and The Suicide Squad have displayed like a tremendous amount of talent from him, and it's awesome to finally see him kill it in a film like this. So basically, this film follows a talk show host named Jack Delroy, whose show has gradually become less and less popular since the death of his wife taking a toll on him. After returning from his hiatus, Jack interviews all sorts of different characters, some of which can apparently contact spirits. Others which believe it all to be a hoax, and a little girl and her guardian that claim to actually be possessed by a demon. So the first person Jack has on his show for his Halloween special is a guy named Christu, who claims he can sense spirits or some shit like that, I don't know. He's one of those typical con artists that I think South Park made fun of, and how they just say the same basic shit that any regular person would have a connection to. So he starts calling out stuff like, I'm sensing a Peter, or something like that, I don't really remember. And he proceeds to tell a mum and a daughter that he can sense their son, who committed suicide, and that he's sorry for the pain that he caused. Everyone seems to kind of gobble it up that's watching the show, but I don't know, it kind of just felt like gross to watch. I get it was the 70s and stuff's changed, but yeah. That's until Christo starts freaking the fuck out. He claims that he can hear the name Minnie being called, and this one was real because he's left visibly shaken after that. After this, Jack brings out a guy called Carmichael who believes that Christo is a liar. This angers Christo and he tries to leave, but as he does, he begins to feel sick and he starts acting very strange, and then he proceeds to vomit some sort of like black liquid just everywhere. It's really disturbing to see. It was first really disturbing when he started calling out the name Minnie, because you knew something was definitely wrong, but then it hit you like a bus with that. You just know, oh, this is going to be a wild ride. Carmichael is still under belief it's a hoax, but Jack points out that Minnie was the name of his late wife. At this point in the film, I was totally intrigued. I absolutely loved the 70s talk show cinematography, and I think it really enhanced the horror in the film. Later on in the film, we learn about a little girl named Lily, who was the sole survivor of a mass suicide that was committed by a satanic church that worshipped a demon. Lily and her guardian believe that this entity called Mr. Wriggles possesses Lily, and the reason they call this entity Mr. Wriggles is through the way he wriggles in and out of Lily. I really liked this, that they had a name for the demon, because it reminded me a lot of the movie The Exorcist and how they called Pazuzu Captain Howdy. Anyway, this scene leads into arguably one of the most unsettling scenes in the film. When we are introduced to Lily, she acts very strange towards Jack and the other guests in the way in which she speaks. Even Jack at some points is just like, sure, to her weird-ass questions. Also, one thing I really want to point out is when they go from being on live TV to being off the air, the color grading changes to black and white, which I think is a really nice distinction. It's also at the point where we learn Christo has apparently died in an ambulance on the way to the hospital after throwing up black liquid everywhere. And it's now people are starting to walk off the set because they believe that we're meddling with powers that they can't control. After demanding from both Carmichael and the audience, June begins a conjuring of Mr. Wiggles. Or Mr. Wriggles. I actually cannot remember this name, and I cannot be bothered doing any more research. Anyway, this scene was so freaking captivating. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. The timing, the editing, the camera work, and acting is done to perfection. It truly feels like you're watching a demon possess a little girl on live TV, and you're not just in a theater watching a movie. It's also at this point during the segment we learn that Jack may have had something to do with the cult. Despite the possession happening right in front of him, Carmichael still doesn't believe it. After this, another freaky scene occurs. Carmichael uses the character Gus to conduct a hypnotism, and you're left genuinely thinking something went wrong when worms start pouring out of his skin. But as I said, it was all an illusion to fool the audience and prove that Lily and June are lying. After reviewing the footage and the cameras, the audience are relieved to see that it was all just hypnotic. That's fucking until Lily says that they should review the footage of her possession. And this is where everything gets really, really tense. Tense than what it already was. Because when they slow down the footage, Jack notices the spirit of his wife in one frame, leaving him and everyone else in shock, and that's when shit gets bonkers. Lily starts floating in the air, and her head splits open. She swiftly kills Gus by turning his head 180 degrees. She kills June by slicing her neck open with a pendant, and she incinerates Kami. After all this commotion, Jack is then transported to different points throughout his life on the show, and it's through this we learn that Jack had a connection to the cult and had to sacrifice something to get the show's numbers back up, and that sacrifice unknowingly being his wife. And after I wrote this, I just realized that this cult is actually real. It has something to do about the Grove, and I think that's what it's called, the Grove, and it's a real haunted cult place sort of thing. I feel like that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. I'll probably have to get into that in another video, but yeah. Anyway, in the final scene, a cancer-ridden Madeline is begging Jack to kill her and to free her from her misery. Jack uses the cult's dagger to cut through her stomach, only for the scene to cut back to the studio, showing that Jack had killed Lily with the dagger. The film ends with Jack surrounded by dead bodies of his guests and police sirens wailing in the distance. When the film ended, me and my friends were in shock at how amazing of an experience that was. It also kind of helped that there was a rat behind our seats making noises and freaking us out because we had no idea what it was until we looked and then just saw a bunch of rat trays. The only problem I had with this film was the use of AI, and I know that it was only minor, but the line does need to be drawn somewhere, and it's below this, or else it's just going to get worse. Another thing I reckon there could have been more of was more than just one straightforward possession scene. It was easily the most captivating part of the film. It was the most well-directed, well-acted, and if they just did one more, everything would have been perfect. Overall, I'd give this film between an 8 and a 9 out of 10, and I definitely recommend you go see it. Cameron and Colin cooked.